Hey everyone, my name is Alex, and I'm a lead consultant with Expat Exact, an expatriate and relocation agency aiding you in finding the destination that matches your destiny. And in this video, we're talking about moving overseas with children. Moving abroad is challenging enough when you're doing it as an adult. You're managing visa applications, finding housing, navigating a new job or business setup, learning cultural norms, and dealing with your own emotional adjustment. But when you add children to that equation, the complexity multiplies exponentially because now you're not just responsible for your own transition, you're responsible for helping small humans navigate one of the most complex experiences of their young lives. Children don't have the context that adults have. They don't understand fully why this move is happening from all vantage points, what benefits it might bring, or how long the adjustment period will last. What they do understand is that everything familiar is changing. Their friends, their school, their routine, and depending on their age and temperament, that loss could manifest as anxiety or withdrawal. The good news is that children are remarkably resilient when they've been given the right support. The research is clear. Kids who move internationally can thrive, develop cultural flexibility, and gain perspectives that serve them for life. But that positive outcome isn't automatic. It depends on how intentionally parents handle the transition. In this video, we're breaking down 5 essential strategies for moving overseas with children. These aren't just tips about packing or finding schools. These are deep approaches to protecting your child's emotional well being, helping them build community, preparing them for success, and keeping your family strong through one of the biggest transitions you'll ever face together. So let's dive right in. Let's start with the most critical piece: emotional support. This is especially important for grade school age children, roughly ages 5 to 12, because this is the stage where kids have built significant attachments to their routine, their friend group, and their sense of place in the world, but they don't have the cognitive tools to fully process major life changes. They're old enough to feel the loss deeply, but not old enough to rationalize the ways sometimes teenagers or adults can. Here's what you need to understand about what your child is experiencing. At home, they had a predictable routine. They knew what mornings looked like, what schools felt like, what afternoons with friends meant. They had a community where they felt known and accepted. They had cultural touchstones that made sense to them: the way people talked, the holidays everyone celebrated, the unspoken rules of how things worked. Moving abroad dismantles all of that at once. And here's the part that parents often miss: children don't just miss their friends. They miss being the version of themselves that existed in that context. They miss being the kid who's funny in their friend group, or good at soccer on their team, or known for being smart in their classroom. When they move abroad, they're starting over without any of that identity reinforcement, and that's profoundly disorientating. So, how do you support them through this? First, validate their feelings without trying to fix them or rush them past the hard emotions. When your child says they miss their friends or they hate the new place, resist the urge to immediately counter with, "But you'll make new friends," or "Give it time, you'll love it here." Those responses, while well intentioned, communicate that their current feelings are wrong or unwelcome. Instead, try something like, "I know you miss your friends. That makes complete sense. Moving is really hard, and it's okay to feel sad about what we left behind." Second, create space for ongoing emotional check ins. Don't just have one big conversation about the move and assume you've handled it. Kids process change over time, and their feelings will evolve. Make it a habit to ask open ended questions like, "What's been the hardest part of the move for you this week?" Or, "What's something you're still trying to figure out?" Listen without judgment and without immediately jumping into problem solving mode. Third, acknowledge the cultural changes they're experiencing, even if they seem small to you. Maybe the kids at school eat different foods at lunch. Maybe recess works differently. Maybe the teacher has different expectations for classroom behavior. These aren't trivial details. They're daily reminders that your child is navigating a world where they don't automatically know the rules. Help them make sense of these differences by talking through them. "I noticed you said kids here don't line up the same way. How does it work here? How do you feel about that?" Fourth, watch for behavioral changes that signal emotional distress. Young children often can't articulate what they're feeling, so it comes out in other ways. They might regress in behaviors they'd outgrown, such as clinginess and tantrums. They might become withdrawn or irritable. They might have trouble sleeping or eating. These might not be placements within manipulation or bad behavior. These could be stress responses. Address them with compassion and consider whether your child needs additional support like counseling or therapy. And finally, remember that adjustment isn't linear. Your child might seem fine for weeks and then suddenly have a meltdown about missing home. That's normal. The grief and adjustment process has waves, and your job is to be a steady, supportive presence through all of them. Emotional support isn't about eliminating your child's difficult feelings. It's about helping them feel those feelings in a safe, supported way so they can move through them rather than getting stuck. The second essential strategy is educating your children about how their new country works, but at a level they can actually understand and integrate. This includes teaching them about the language, how business operates differently, how laws and social norms differ from what they knew. But you can't just lecture them about these things. You have to make it concrete, age appropriate, and connected to their daily experience. Let's start with language. If you're moving to a country where a different language is spoken, your child needs to understand that language learning is a part of their new reality and it's possible to get better at it. For younger kids, frame language as a skill they're building together. We're all learning together, and it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we get better. For some older kids, you can be more explicit about the best ways to learn a new language and in a style that they resonate with, such as, let's watch this new movie you mentioned with the subtitles on in this new language, or doing a day of shopping, but the caveat is you must interact with all the staff in this new language. When it comes to how things work, business, laws, social systems, translate these concepts into situations your child will actually encounter. Don't explain tax systems or government structure in abstract terms. Instead, talk about the things they'll notice. For example, in this country, shops close earlier in the evening, so we'll need to do our errands earlier in the day. Or, here, kids, ride bikes to school without helmets because the laws are different. We're still going to wear helmets because that's what keeps us safe, but you'll see other kids doing it differently. Use teachable moments as they arise. When you're at a restaurant and the service works differently, talk about it. Did you notice we paid at the counter instead of at the table? That's how it works here. When you're navigating public transportation, explain the system. See how everyone scans their card when they get on? That's how they track the fare. These small, concrete lessons help your child build a mental model of how their new environment functions. But here is the crucial piece that many parents miss: helping your child imagine a future in this new place. Children cope with change far better when they can mentally project themselves into a stable, positive future. This is what we call giving them a future anchor, a vision of themselves settled and thriving rather than perpetually in transition. Talk about future milestones and traditions you'll create together. Next year at this time, you'll probably have a favorite spot to get ice cream here. Or when your birthday comes around, we could celebrate it at this park that we visited last weekend. Or by the time school gets out for summer, you'll know the city so well you can show visiting friends around. These statements help your child imagine themselves not just surviving the move, but actually belonging in this new place. Set goals together that extend into the future. Maybe your child wants to join a sports team once they're more settled. Maybe they want to learn or speak the local language well enough to lead, such as starting a small business or serving as the school president. Maybe they're excited about a specific activity or place they want to explore. Whatever it is, frame it as something to work towards rather than just something to endure. In 3 months, you could try for that soccer team. What do you need to be ready for that? Hope is a powerful psychological stabilizer, especially for children who are dealing with significant disruption. When kids can envision a future where they're happy, integrated, and thriving in their new environment, it gives them something to move towards instead of just something to get through. The education piece isn't just about information, it's about building competence and confidence that they can not only survive in this new place, but actually build a good life here. The third strategy is one of the most important and most overlooked: helping your child build community beyond just their school. Yes, school is where they'll spend most of their time. And yes, school friendships matter enormously. But if school is the only place where your child is trying to connect, you're putting all their social eggs into one basket, and that's risky. But if the kids in their class aren't a good fit? What if they struggle to break into established friend groups? What if the school culture doesn't align with your child's interests or personality? This is where extracurricular programs, sports teams, youth centers, hobby groups, and community activities become essential. These spaces give your child multiple opportunities to find their people, kids who share their interests, their energy level, their sense of humor. And because these activities are organized around something other than academics, the social dynamics are often different. A child who feels overlooked at school might thrive on a soccer team or in a theater group or at a climbing gym. Start by researching what's available in your new city. Look for youth sports leagues, music programs, art classes, scout troops, religious youth groups, coding clubs, dance studios, martial arts schools, whatever aligns with your child's interests or might spark new ones. Don't just sign them up for one activity and hope it works. Try multiple things and let your child have input in what they want to continue and what they want to drop. These activities serve multiple purposes. First, they give your child greater exposure to different types of kids and social environments, which increases their chances of finding genuine connection. Second, they help your child develop competence and confidence in something they're good at, which is incredibly valuable when everything else feels uncertain. Third, they create routine and structure outside of school, which gives your child's week more rhythm and predictability. But here's something that's critically important. Don't dismiss expat communities just because you're living in a foreign country. There's sometimes a mindset amongst parents that if you're living abroad, your kids should only interact with local children to fully integrate. However, children benefit enormously from spending time with other kids who share their cultural background and understand what it's like to be far from their home country. Expat communities offer something irreplaceable: kids who get it. They understand the experience of missing home. They can talk about things from the culture you came from without needing explanation. They share references, humor, and experiences that local kids might not relate to. This doesn't mean your child should only spend time with other expat kids. That would limit their growth and integration. But it means expat friendships can provide a kind of emotional support and cultural continuity that's hard to find elsewhere. Look for international schools if that's an option financially, but also look for expat family groups, international sports leagues, cultural centers for your home country, and online communities where expat families connect. Many cities have organized groups specifically for American families abroad, or British families, or Australian families, whatever applies to your situation. These networks can introduce your child to peers who are navigating the same transition. The goal is balance. You want your child exposed to local culture and forming friendships with local kids. That's part of the richness of living abroad. But you also want them to have access to kids who share their background and understand their experience if that's an option. Both types of friendships serve important developmental needs, and prioritizing one at the expense of the other does your child a disservice. Cast a wide net, encourage diverse friendships, and let your child find their community in multiple spaces rather than limiting them to just one. The next thing is to start preparing your children for the cultural transition months before you actually move. The worst thing you can do is show up in a new country and expect your child to immediately adapt to a completely foreign environment. But if you start building familiarity while you're still at home, the adjustment curve becomes significantly gentler. Let's talk about how to do this effectively. Start with media, specifically children's programming in the language of your destination country. Find popular kids shows, cartoons, or YouTube channels that children in that country watch and start incorporating them into your child's routine. If you're moving to Spain, find Spanish cartoons. If you're moving to France, look for French children's programming. The goal here isn't necessarily language fluency before you arrive, though that's a bonus. The goal is familiarity. When your child starts watching content from their new country, they're absorbing cultural references, humor, pacing, and perspectives that will feel familiar when they encounter them in real life. They're building mental bridges between their current world and their future one. When they arrive and see kids talking about the same shows they've been watching, it's an instant point of connection. Music is another powerful tool. Find out what kids in your destination country are listening to, what songs are popular, what artists dominate the youth culture, and start playing that music at home. Let your child hear the rhythm, the language, the style. Music has a way of making cultural immersion feel fun rather than intimidating. By the time you arrive, certain songs will already feel comforting and familiar. Toys and games are another entry point. Research what toys are popular with kids in your destination country and see if you can get your hands on some. Maybe there's a particular toy line that's huge in that market. Maybe there are traditional games or sports equipment that kids there use. When your child plays with these items before moving, they're not just playing, they're practicing cultural fluency. When they arrive and see other kids with the same toys, it creates immediate common ground. Food is another area worth exploring early. Start introducing dishes from your destination country into your family meals. Talk about the ingredients, the flavors, the traditions around certain foods. If your child arrives already familiar with enjoying some local cuisine, meals become much less stressful and more enjoyable. They're not facing a double challenge of adjusting to a new environment and adjusting to completely unfamiliar food at the same time. Books are another excellent preparation tool. Find children's books written by authors from your destination country or set in that country. Read them together and talk about what you notice. Look, in this story about the kids walk to school by themselves. I wonder if you'll do that when you move. These stories build context and help your child imagine what life might look like. If possible, plan a visit to your destination country before you move, even if it's just for a week. Let your child see the place, walk the streets, visit potential schools, try local activities. The more concrete their mental picture is, the less scary the unknown becomes. If a visit isn't feasible, use videos or virtual tours. The key principle here is reducing shock of novelty. Every piece of familiarity you build before the move is one less thing your child has to process when they're already overwhelmed by transition. Start this work 6 months to a year before your move if possible. Make it fun and exploratory rather than pressured. You're not trying to turn your child into an expert on their new country. You're just building enough familiarity that when they do arrive, some things will feel recognizable instead of everything feeling alien. That difference matters enormously for a child's sense of security and ability to adapt. And finally, we need to talk about something that parents often neglect when they're overwhelmed by the logistics of an international move: protecting family cohesion. When you're dealing with visa paperwork, apartment hunting, job transitions, cultural adjustment, and everything else that comes with relocation, it's incredibly easy to be busier than normal. Here's what children need to understand during a major transition. The world around them might be changing dramatically, but their relationships at home remain secure. Their parents are still available. Their siblings are still on their team. The family unit is still solid. When kids feel confident in that foundation, they can handle the external chaos much better. But when family relationships become strained or distant because everyone's overwhelmed, children may feel like they're losing their most important source of security right when they need it most. So, how do you protect this? First, prioritize family check ins. These don't have to be formal or lengthy, they just have to be consistent. Maybe it's a conversation at dinner every night where everyone shares one hard thing and one good thing from their day. Maybe it's a weekend family meeting where you talk about what's working and what's challenging. Maybe it's a bedtime ritual where you spend 10 minutes with each child individually. There's a big emphasis on one time with each child because when you're managing a family move, it's easy to treat your child as a unit, getting everyone fed, everyone to school, everyone through the day. But individual attention matters. Each child is having their own unique experience of this transition, and they need to know that you see them as individuals, not just part of the family logistics. This doesn't have to mean elaborate outings. It can be as simple as a walk around the block with one child. It can be 15 minutes of reading together before bed. It can be letting one child help you with errands while the other stays at home. The point is undivided attention and the message that communicates, you matter to me individually, and I'm here for you. Be intentional about maintaining or creating family rituals, even small ones. Maybe you have movie night every Friday. Maybe you go to a specific park every Sunday. Maybe you have pancakes every Saturday morning. These rituals create anchors of predictability in a sea of change. They signal to your children that while the environment has changed, the family hasn't. You're still the same people who care about each other and prioritize spending time together. And here's something parents need to hear: it's okay to admit when you're struggling, but do it in age appropriate ways. Your children don't need to carry your stress, but they also benefit from seeing that you're human. This move is harder than I expected, and I'm working on figuring things out. Is honest and models emotional honesty. The family is the stable base while everything else changes. Your home, not the physical space, but the relational space, is where your children return to feel safe, understood, and connected. When you protect that space intentionally, you give the children the foundation they need to venture out into the unfamiliar world and take the risks required to adapt and grow. Raising resilient global children. So there you have it. 5 essential strategies for moving overseas with children. These strategies aren't just about making the move easier in the short term. They're about setting your children up for long-term success. Children who move internationally with strong parental support develop skills that serve them for life. They learn adaptability, cultural flexibility, emotional resilience, and the ability to build community in new environments. They develop perspectives that monocultural kids often don't get. They become comfortable with uncertainty and change in ways that position them well for an increasingly globalized world. But those benefits aren't automatic. They come from intentional parenting through a difficult transition. They come from recognizing that your child's emotional experience is just as important as the logistics of the move. They come from investing time and energy into helping your child not just survive the relocation, but actually integrate and thrive in their new environment. But it's also an incredible gift you're giving your children: the opportunity to see the world differently and to develop resilience and adaptability that will serve them for the rest of their lives. Do the work to support them well through this transition. Validate their struggles, build their community, prepare them thoughtfully, give them hope for the future, and anchor them in the security of your family bond. When you do this, you're not just helping them survive a difficult move, you're raising children who know how to thrive anywhere in the world. And that's a foundation that lasts a lifetime.